Shocking facts about human psychology. Human psychology is far more complex and often more disturbing than we like to admit. We believe we are rational, self-aware, and in control of our thoughts and decisions. Yet psychological research consistently shows that much of our behavior is driven by unconscious processes, emotional shortcuts, and hidden biases. The human mind is not a perfectly logical machine. Instead, it is a fragile system shaped by evolution, fear, social pressure, and survival instincts. In this video, we explore some shocking psychological facts that reveal how little control we truly have over our own minds, and how these hidden mechanisms silently influence our everyday lives. One of the most unsettling facts about human psychology is that the brain often makes decisions before we are consciously aware of them. Studies using brain imaging have shown that neural activity predicting a decision can be detected several seconds before a person consciously decides. This suggests that free will, as we experience it, may be more of an illusion than a reality. In daily life, this explains why people often justify decisions after they've already made them, such as choosing a product, trusting a person, or forming an opinion, without realizing that the decision was largely emotional and automatic. Another shocking reality is that human memory is not reliable at all. We tend to believe that memories are accurate recordings of the past, but psychology shows that memory is reconstructive, not reproductive. Every time we recall a memory, we subtly alter it. Emotions, suggestions from others, and even simple questions can distort what we think we remember. This is why eyewitness testimony, once considered highly trustworthy, is now known to be one of the weakest forms of evidence. People can confidently remember events that never actually happened, a phenomenon known as false memory. A deeply uncomfortable psychological fact is that most people overestimate their own intelligence, morality, and competence. This cognitive bias, known as the Dunning-Kruger effect, causes individuals with limited knowledge to believe they understand a topic better than they actually do. Ironically, the more skilled a person becomes, the more they recognize the limits of their knowledge. This explains why loud confidence is often mistaken for expertise, especially on social media, while genuinely knowledgeable individuals tend to express more doubt and caution. Human psychology is also heavily shaped by the need for social acceptance. Research shows that social rejection activates the same areas of the brain as physical pain. This is why being ignored, excluded, or humiliated can feel emotionally devastating. In many cases, people will change their opinions, suppress their values, or engage in harmful behaviors simply to avoid social rejection. This psychological need explains peer pressure, toxic workplace cultures, and even why people stay silent in the face of injustice. Another shocking truth is that the human brain is wired to focus more on negative experiences than positive ones. This is called negativity bias. One negative comment can outweigh 10 positive compliments, and a single failure can overshadow many successes. From an evolutionary perspective, this bias helped humans survive by prioritizing threats. However, in modern life, it often leads to anxiety, chronic stress, and low self-esteem. This is why people replay embarrassing moments repeatedly while quickly forgetting praise or achievements. Psychology also reveals that emotions strongly influence logic, even when we believe we are being rational. When emotions run high, the brain's emotional center can overpower the logical reasoning areas. This explains why people make impulsive decisions when angry, fearful, or excited, and later regret them. Marketers, politicians, and media outlets frequently exploit this psychological weakness by triggering emotions such as fear or hope to influence public behavior and opinions. One disturbing psychological fact is that humans are far more influenced by authority than they realize. Famous experiments have shown that ordinary people are willing to obey authority figures even when it conflicts with their moral values. This obedience is not limited to extreme situations. It occurs in workplaces, families, and institutions every day. People often follow instructions not because they agree, but because resisting authority creates psychological discomfort and fear of consequences. Another fascinating aspect of human psychology is that the brain struggles to distinguish between imagination and reality. When you vividly imagine an experience, your brain activates many of the same neural pathways as if the event were real. This is why visualization techniques can improve performance, but also why overthinking worst-case scenarios can cause real stress and anxiety. Your body reacts to imagined threats as if they were actually happening. Human psychology also shows that habits control a large portion of daily behavior. Nearly half of what people do each day is habitual, performed without conscious thought. Habits are stored in a part of the brain that allows actions to continue even when motivation is low. This explains why bad habits are so difficult to break and why willpower alone is often not enough. Changing behavior usually requires changing the environment and triggers, not just intentions. Perhaps one of the most shocking psychological facts is that people are often unaware of their true motivations. When asked why they acted a certain way, individuals typically provide logical explanations, even when those explanations are inaccurate. The mind prefers coherence over truth. This phenomenon, known as confabulation, reveals how the brain creates stories to protect the ego and maintain a sense of control. Finally, human psychology teaches us that self-awareness is rare but powerful. Most people live on psychological autopilot, driven by unconscious fears, biases, and emotional habits. Those who take time to reflect on their thoughts and behaviors gain a significant advantage in relationships, decision-making, and personal growth. Understanding these shocking psychological facts is not meant to make us fearful, but aware. Awareness is the first step toward mastering the mind instead of being controlled by it. One of the most disturbing psychological facts is that the human mind constantly lies to protect itself. This is known as self-deception. People unconsciously distort reality to preserve self-esteem and emotional comfort. For example, when individuals fail an exam, lose a job, or face rejection, the brain often shifts blame outward, toward unfair systems, bad luck, or other people, rather than confronting personal shortcomings. While this defense mechanism reduces emotional pain in the short term, it also prevents long-term growth and learning. Another shocking psychological truth is that confidence is often unrelated to accuracy. Psychological research shows that people who are most confident in their beliefs are not necessarily the most correct. In fact, extreme confidence often signals a lack of reflection. This explains why misinformation spreads so easily online. People who know little about a topic may speak with absolute certainty, while experts hesitate and use cautious language. The human brain mistakes confidence for credibility, making us vulnerable to manipulation. Human psychology is also deeply influenced by the fear of uncertainty. The brain prefers a wrong answer over no answer at all. This is why people cling to rigid beliefs, conspiracy theories, or extreme ideologies, because uncertainty creates anxiety. Psychologically, it feels safer to believe something definite, even if it is false, than to accept ambiguity. This tendency shapes political polarization, religious extremism, and even personal relationships. Another uncomfortable fact is that humans are highly suggestible. Our thoughts, preferences, and memories can be subtly shaped by wording, tone, and context. For example, the way a question is framed can completely change a person's response. This is why advertising, media headlines, and social narratives are so powerful. People often believe they formed opinions independently, when in reality those opinions were gently planted through repetition and emotional cues. Psychology also reveals that love and attraction are strongly influenced by psychology rather than destiny. Familiarity, proximity, emotional vulnerability, and timing play a larger role in romantic attachment than most people realize. Studies show that people often confuse emotional arousal, such as fear, stress, or excitement, with attraction. This explains why intense environments can accelerate romantic feelings, even when long-term compatibility is low. Another shocking insight is that the brain resists change, even positive change. New habits, environments, or opportunities activate uncertainty and discomfort. This is why people remain in unhappy jobs, unhealthy relationships, or stagnant routines. The brain prioritizes predictability over happiness. From a psychological perspective, familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar possibility. Human psychology is also shaped by attention scarcity. The brain can only focus deeply on a limited number of things, yet modern life bombards us with constant stimulation. As a result, attention has become fragmented, reducing patience, deep thinking, and emotional regulation. This explains the rise in anxiety, impulsivity, and difficulty sustaining focus. The brain was never designed for endless notifications and information overload. One of the most sobering psychological facts is that stress silently reshapes the brain. Chronic stress shrinks areas responsible for memory and emotional control while strengthening fear-based responses. Over time, this makes people more reactive, less creative, and emotionally exhausted. Many individuals believe stress is just mental pressure, but psychologically and biologically, it alters who we become. Another powerful truth is that sleep deprivation severely distorts thinking and emotions. Lack of sleep reduces empathy, increases impulsivity, and weakens moral judgment. People who are sleep-deprived are more likely to misinterpret neutral situations as threatening. This explains why exhaustion fuels conflict, poor decisions, and emotional breakdowns, both at individual and societal levels. Perhaps the most shocking realization in psychology is that most people do not truly know themselves. Self-knowledge requires discomfort, reflection, and honesty, qualities that the mind naturally avoids. Instead, people build identities based on social roles, expectations, and comparisons. True psychological growth begins when individuals question their automatic thoughts and emotional reactions. In conclusion, human psychology is not designed to make us happy. It is designed to help us survive. Many mental patterns that once protected us now create suffering in modern life. Understanding these shocking psychological facts gives us power, not over others but over ourselves. Awareness transforms unconscious behavior into conscious choice. And in a world driven by distraction, fear, and emotional manipulation, psychological awareness may be the most valuable skill of all. One of the darkest truths in human psychology is that people are far more capable of cruelty than they believe. Most individuals think of themselves as kind and moral, yet psychological research consistently shows that under certain conditions, stress, authority pressure, group identity, or fear, ordinary people can engage in harmful behavior. What makes this fact truly shocking is not the presence of evil individuals, but how easily normal people justify harmful actions when they believe it is necessary, deserved, or for a greater good. The human mind is disturbingly skilled at moral rationalization. Another unsettling psychological fact is that humans crave meaning more than happiness. People can endure pain, loss, and suffering if they believe it serves a purpose. However, when life feels meaningless, even comfort and success can feel empty. This explains why individuals sometimes sabotage stable lives in search of intensity, drama, or identity. The brain is not satisfied by pleasure alone. It demands significance, even if that significance is painful. Human psychology also reveals that comparison silently destroys well-being. The mind constantly evaluates itself relative to others, not based on absolute progress, but on social ranking. With the rise of social media, this tendency has intensified dramatically. Seeing curated success, beauty, or happiness activates feelings of inadequacy, even when one's own life is objectively stable. Psychologically, the brain interprets others' success as personal failure, leading to envy, resentment, and low self-worth. A deeply disturbing psychological insight is that the brain prefers familiar suffering over unfamiliar peace. People repeatedly return to toxic relationships, harmful habits, and destructive environments, not because they enjoy pain, but because predictability feels safe. The nervous system becomes conditioned to chaos, mistaking emotional intensity for connection. Calm, healthy situations may feel boring or uncomfortable simply because the brain is not used to stability. Another shocking fact is that most people are emotionally reactive, not emotionally intelligent. The brain reacts first and reflects later, if at all. When emotions arise, they often hijack behavior before logic can intervene. This is why people say things they regret, make impulsive decisions, or damage relationships in moments of emotional overwhelm. Emotional intelligence is not natural. It is a learned psychological skill that requires awareness, regulation, and practice. Human psychology also shows that identity is fragile and easily threatened. When people feel their beliefs, values, or social identity are challenged, the brain activates defensive mechanisms similar to physical threat responses. Instead of processing information objectively, individuals reject facts that contradict their worldview. This explains why debates rarely change minds and why people double down on beliefs even when evidence suggests they are wrong. Another uncomfortable psychological truth is that the mind avoids silence. Silence forces self-reflection, and self-reflection exposes unresolved emotions, fears, and regrets. To escape this discomfort, people constantly distract themselves with noise, screens, conversations, and activity. Yet psychology shows that growth often begins in stillness. Avoiding silence may feel safe, but it delays emotional healing. One of the most haunting psychological facts is that regret is more painful than failure. Research suggests that people suffer more from the things they didn't do than from the mistakes they made. Missed opportunities linger in the mind because the brain endlessly imagines alternate realities. This is why unresolved choices often haunt people later in life, creating a quiet but persistent psychological burden. Human psychology also reveals that control is a powerful illusion. People feel safer when they believe they are in control, even when outcomes are largely unpredictable. This illusion reduces anxiety, but it can also lead to frustration and burnout when reality does not cooperate. Accepting uncertainty is psychologically difficult, yet it is essential for resilience and mental peace. Perhaps the most shocking realization is that self-awareness changes everything, but most people resist it. Becoming aware of one's biases, emotional triggers, and unconscious patterns requires humility and discomfort. The ego resists exposure. Yet psychology shows that those who develop self-awareness experience deeper relationships, better decision-making, and greater emotional freedom. Awareness does not eliminate pain, but it prevents unnecessary suffering. In the end, human psychology is not about perfection, it is about understanding. The mind is not broken. It is simply ancient, operating in a modern world it was never designed for. These shocking facts are not meant to frighten you, but to awaken you. When you understand how the mind works, you stop being controlled by it. And in that awareness lies the true power of psychology.